You all probably saw in the news last year that a major earthquake and tsunami struck Japan. These natural occurrences were so powerful that Japan, the most earthquake-prepared country in the world, suffered catastrophic losses. Japanese media estimated that at least 40,000 people had been killed. I was there in the days after the crisis began. Today I'm going to talk to you about my recent deployment to Sendai, Japan, and the conditions of the area. I will also talk to you about my role in the deployment, basically what my job was to help the Japanese out. So let me start off by telling you how I got tasked to go to Japan. On March 11, 2011, I was on an aircraft heading to Thailand for a military exercise. Once we landed, the airfield commander briefed us that this major earthquake and tsunami had happened in Japan and that we might get tasked to go that way. So about 2 days after we got to Thailand, we received orders to go to Japan. I was told that I was going to Sendai, which was one of the hardest hit areas of the tsunami. So we packed everything up, jumped on aircraft, and headed that way. Once I landed in Sendai, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, so we couldn't really see anything. It was pitch black. There was no electricity. Just miles around, there was no lights, not even a street light. So we got shuttled into the airport, which was about the only building still standing, and rolled out our sleeping bags and went to sleep. Next morning we woke up, looked out the window, and we couldn't believe what we saw. It's just mangled cars all over the place. They were inside of the airport. They were on inside the second level of the airport. Trees, pieces of houses, personal belongings, stuff just scattered all over the flight line. And so we had a few obstacles we had to overcome before we started operations. And our first main obstacle was clearing the flight line of all debris. So we grabbed forklifts and bulldozers that we brought in with us, moved everything out of the way so we could start operations. We had no electricity for a little while, but we got generators sent in, so we could at least get power. And also, after we got there, we heard about the nuclear power plant, which was about 40 miles from Sendai, so that was just a little more added stress to the whole operation. Now I've talked to you about my deployment to Sendai and what type of conditions we had to adapt to. Let me talk to you about my specific role. My priority role was to receive incoming cargo aircraft. The aircraft were bringing in water, food, blankets, just various supplies for the Japanese people, because it was still at the end of winter, so the lows were getting down to about 15 degrees or so at night, so it was still pretty cold. So they needed a lot of support. The second part of my role was to serve as a logistics liaison. All I had at the time when to pass information was a cell phone, but I had to keep the airfield commander informed on what aircraft were coming and what they had on them, so they could coordinate Japanese trucks to come and pick the stuff up. It was pretty difficult at first, due to the lack of communication. Like I said, all I had was a cell phone. But we eventually got some satellite internet equipment from the special ops guys, so that helped out a little bit. But in spite of some minor setbacks, the mission was successful, and we were able to provide a lot of support to the Japanese. And the Sendai airport was operational and turned back over to the Japanese on April 9th, which was about 4 weeks after the tsunami happened. So in a nutshell, that was my deployment to Sendai, Japan. Everything was successful, and I was very happy with everything. So today I talked to you about my deployment to Sendai, Japan, and the conditions of the area. I also talked to you about what my role was on the deployment and how I was able to help out the Japanese. I hope you found this briefing to be interesting and informative, and this deployment was definitely a highlight of my military career, and I'm glad I got to share it with you. Thanks.